So what about not in pregnancy? Okay, so a couple. So I think that really is something that we need to be more comfortable doing. Sam?
Lifestyle, if they're in a relationship, I could understand them taking it, but then stopping, and then if they get in another relationship, starting it again.
So there was a pretty high profile study looking at intermittent Truvada, and what they did is, I believe it was 2 to 24 hours before a sexual encounter that they pop a Truvada, and then they continue it for 2 days after. And it did have some efficacy, but at that point, I think the risk is really that it may not be getting to the concentration that it needs to provide like 99% efficacy. So, and there are other studies that are underway that are looking at different kind of dosing requirements. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll jump into the cases here. So this is case number 1, which is a 28-year-old transgender pre-surgical male to female who reports being concerned about an unprotected sexual encounter they had yesterday. She presents to your office for PrEP. So how many of you would say, yes, she needs PrEP? Okay, I see a couple of hands. How many of you would say, no, she doesn't need PrEP? Okay, how many of you would say she needs something else? Okay, something else.
Yeah.
Right. So here we're not really talking about pre-exposure anymore. The exposure's already happened, and she has non-occupational exposure, so we're really talking more about post-exposure prophylaxis. So she may be, you're obviously going to have to ask her more questions about the partner status and, the kind of sex that was involved, but she may be a good candidate for non-occupational post-exposure prophylaxis, which is something that we give that's full heart, that we give for about a month, for 28 days after a kind of high-risk activity. But if it turns out that she continues to have this pattern over time, then she really does become a candidate for PrEP. But in this short-term, immediate situation, post-exposure prophylaxis would probably be more applicable. And for that, we usually use Truvada plus raltegravir or Truvada plus Tivicay. Okay, so this is case number 2, 25-year-old female with history of bipolar disorder, ADHD, on Suboxone for chronic pain, with last IV drug use 2 months ago. Would you consider PrEP for this patient? What do you guys think? Show of hands. I see a lot of yes. Okay. No? Do I have any no's?
How crazy is she?
Yeah. So for this, if she was stable enough to be able to take PrEP, we would do PrEP. But part of really assessing patient readiness is to make sure that her bipolar disorder, her ADHD are under control to the point where she actually could take another medication. But barring that, she would be a great candidate for PrEP. Okay, case 3, so 53-year-old male with history of diabetes, hypertension, CKD stage 4, presents to follow up for diabetes. He states he started having sex with ladies of the night for companionship. That is absolutely how someone described it to me once. Would you consider PrEP for this patient? Who says yes? Who says no? Cheryl? Tell us why. Yeah. So it's the CKD that is, there are not tons of absolute contraindications, but that's definitely one of them. So we wouldn't be able to do it, though, as new PrEP medications come out, this person would definitely be a candidate for something in the future, but not a tenofovir containing regimen. Okay? And then this is our last case here, 21-year-old male with no past medical history, with 5 male sexual partners in the past few months, practices receptive anal intercourse, and uses condoms about 50% of the time. Would you consider PrEP for this patient? Show of hands, yes? Okay, anybody say no? Okay, this is a little bit of a slam dunk that we would consider PrEP for this patient. He's incredibly high risk, and he also practices incredibly high risk sexual behavior. So on the, I guess the pyramid of high risk behaviors, receptive anal is going to be, the highest risk you can get, followed by insertive anal, followed by receptive vaginal. So yes, we would consider PrEP for this particular patient. So just to give you a glimpse of what the future might hold, there are other medications that are currently being studied. There's TAF that's being studied for PrEP, also maraviroc, which is a CCR5 antagonist. There's a new, it's an NRTI, but it's a nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitor, translocation inhibitor that's being studied right now. And then they're also looking at longer acting medications. So something that maybe someone can take once a month versus twice monthly injections, or what we would love is a yearly injection. So those are all currently being studied. There's also different formulations of PrEP being studied. We have pills, but looking at things like films. There's been a lot of study with microbicide gels, looking at other types of injections, and even vaginal rings. Different types of modalities that actually give women the power to decide their sexual health and that they can control are also something that that I'm hoping we'll see in the future. So for that patient that was in his 50s with CKD, there may be some other options in the future. So my take home is really that PrEP is incredibly effective, and it's one part of a much larger strategy. And the only way to scale that up is really through us and being pretty proactive about it. So consider PrEP for your patients who are at high risk for HIV acquisition. There are CDC guidelines. There's the folder that's being circulated around that has a lot of information too. Reach out to experts with any questions. Dr. Kaiser, we are super happy to field any questions. And there's actually a PrEP hotline that University of California, San Francisco developed, where you can call them pretty much anytime, 1-855-HIV-PrEP, to ask any questions about pre-exposure prophylaxis. And that's something that's totally open and free to mainly healthcare workers, but also to patients as well. And these are a couple of other references with the CDC guidelines. And the second link is to the consultation service at UCSF. So I'm happy to take any questions. We can get patients in. I know that we're starting PrEP on patients at the HIV clinic. We also, at the team clinic in Texas City, we've been starting patients on PrEP, and there are a couple of primary care providers that have started doing PrEP as well. And I'm hoping that we can kind of get this training to them at some point as well, so that more of them will be able to do it. Any other questions, comments? Okay, well, thank you all so much.
was good. It wasn't boring. I didn't fall asleep. All the words you were using there. I thought it was good, and I also thought it was like in language where it's not like. Yeah. So they are. I mean, what if someone not me, but anybody was being cheated on? Somebody whose name is rhymes with my friend. No. But seriously, like this woman was being cheated on, and she felt like her husband, not with men, with other women. Yeah. Would she qualify for friend?
Technically, no, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't make exceptions. You know, like these are like guidelines, of, like these are the people absolutely should. But then I think there are situations, like some people would recommend it just in places that have high HIV prevalence, just among like heterosexual people. So, you know, because you don't always know if your partner's like rehab.
Of course. Everyone should be on PrEP.
Just put in the water and then you don't have to worry.
Yeah, exactly.
Bye. Oh, thanks so much.
Hey, we understand you want to wait, but we're willing to go forward and take this. Yeah, that was great.
Thanks.
I especially liked your case studies integrating stuff in that.
Thanks.
Okay. But, actually, I want to make sure three-step training. You know what I mean? I'm reading a lot.
And we need the best words for our adult positions to speak preferably. And all of our kids, there's going to be 60, 70 kids. Oh, yeah.